Thy ticket, Lady Jennifer of Coolidge.
Well, many thanks, good sir. Here'th my Discover card.
They accept Discover at Renaissance fairs?
Yeah, they do here. Discover's accepted at the places I love to shop. Getteth with the times.
With the times? You're playing the lute.
Yeah, and it sounds pretty good, right?
Discover is accepted at 99% of places that take credit cards nationwide. Based on the February 2025 Nielsen report.
Breaking down the teams you're passionate about. This is Scotty G and Friends on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
And it's sped to safety by Jesperi Kapanen. Ahead comes Nugent-Hopkins. He shoots and scores! Ryan Nugent-Hopkins makes it 3-1. And the Oilers have 3 goals on 6 shots. One-timer from Kerfoot, and that didn't miss the top left corner by much. Jersey swings it towards the net, and they score! Put another one in the tip jar for Alexander Kerfoot, and we're tied at 5. 7:04 to go in the third, and the Delta Center is alive. The Mammoth power play has been as hot as it's been all year over the last 5 games in which they have 9 power play goals. They win the face-off here. It's a 4-on-3. Sergachev this way for Keller. Right dot, he shoots and scores! Captain on deck! A 6-5 overtime win for the Utah Mammoth. Statement made!
What a game last night in the Delta Center as the Mammoth get the 6-5 victory over. Boy, I tell you what, you get a win against Edmonton, a team that the Mammoth had not beat in their short history, starting to get to 2 full seasons now, but the Mammoth get over the hump. They get the win in OT, and helping break it down, Greg Wyshynski, senior NHL writer at ESPN. And there's certain games, Greg, where it just kind of feels like, okay, this team's kind of arrived. And I know they've been holding on to that playoff spot for a while now, but that seemed to be a moment that I think a lot of Mammoth fans are going to look at and say, okay, you know what? We can hang with these guys. We're all right. We're a pretty good team.
I think we've been talking now for about 90 seconds, and you've yet to mention the Mammoth.
I know.
Which I think is really the takeaway from yesterday.
Hey.
No, man, It was a ton of fun, that game. Obviously, both teams didn't exactly play the most exemplary defense in that contest last night, but that's fine. Sometimes, if you're a team proving your worth against one of the teams that, obviously has been amongst the NHL's elite, having gone to the Cup final in consecutive seasons, you've got to show you can win in different situations. So, Edmonton bought it offensively. Utah matched it, and it was a really solid victory and a fun one, too.
Bottom line is the Mammoth are 1-0 with the Zamoth out on the ice. So
that's right. And I saw Ryan Smith saying, "Hey, can we start a new victory tradition of having the mascot wave the flag and the Zamoth afterwards?" I'm like, come on, man, you got to let that happen organically. Like, you can't declare that as the victory celebration, but hey, it is, as you said, 1-0 with the Zamoth. So some Zamoth magic running through the franchise.
So how much do you look at the Edmonton Oilers if they're healthy and they get that full lineup back in the playoffs? How much improved is that team going into postseason play?
Yeah, I think they'll definitely. I mean, obviously, you want to be at full strength when you get into the playoffs. Yeah. But I think the issue for the Oilers, for me at least, having covered them extensively in the last couple of playoff runs, is that I just don't think top to bottom they're as good as they were in previous seasons, and that's kind of my concern. Not only the depth in the lineup, missing some key players. I mean, like a guy like even Corey Perry, for example, who always brings it in the postseason, is no longer there. But, they made a clear downgrade in their goaltending, going from, Stuart Skinner to Tristan Jarry, who's certainly not been anywhere near a solution for their goaltending problems. So, listen, there anytime you've got McDavid and Draisaitl, we're assuming Draisaitl will be back for game 1 of the playoffs. It's bad news for your opponent, but I'm just not nearly enamored with this Edmonton team as much as I was with their previous incarnations.
what do you look at when you see the Mammoth as the strength and the things that you really like about this squad?
Well, I mean, obviously, the first and foremost is the ability to put the pedal down offensively when they need to. Just such an impressive collection of young offensive talent on this team. I was looking at their numbers since the Olympic break, and it's interesting. They've done well, no doubt about that. But I mean, you think about their expected goals for, it's actually higher than the goals. Rather their goals. Expected goals for is kind of right around what they're scoring, so it's not necessarily like they should be doing better than what they're doing offensively. I think if anything, they're analytically playing better defense than what they're doing in actuality. So there's room for improvement there. But I think what's most intriguing about them as a playoff contender right now is just the unbridled enthusiasm of the newness of it all. Like, the first time you get a Stanley Cup playoff game in Salt Lake is going to be incredible. And we're already feeling that playoff atmosphere like we saw last night with the Oilers game. So, having that excitement, having a collection of players, let's not forget, that have been dying to get into the playoffs again, thinking about their time in the previous stop for this franchise. All that adds up to it just being, the kind of enthusiasm that can carry you through a few rounds of these playoffs.
When you look at Cooley and where he's at this point in his career and kind of project into the future, I mean, you see the guy and he still looks like he's, 12 years old. But you watch him out on the ice, it's like this guy has a chance to be really special. What's the ceiling on a kid like that?
Well, the ceiling should be he should have a gold medal around his neck in 2030 with Team USA.
Yes.
He's outstanding, and obviously, one wonders what this season would have looked like for him had he been able to play, more than 49 games. I think statistically he's been good, but I mean, he was on such a heater before the injury. So, I think in Cooley's case, the sky's the limit. He's clearly, one of the key players for this team now and one of the faces of the franchise. But I can tell you from around the league, I mean, people just look at him and say to themselves, this is going to be one of the, biggest offensive stars that we have in the NHL for the next, decade.
So you look at the race, and Nashville's hanging around, and that's the game coming up on Thursday. How do you see that one going down?
Yeah, I mean, it's been such a weird playoff season, right? Like Nashville is a team that I think everyone basically had written off. There was much more interest in who they were going to trade at the deadline from that core of veteran players than whether or not they could actually make the playoffs. They still only have around a 22% chance of making the cut, but they keep on picking up points and making things interesting, and those veterans, their goaltending has come through in a pretty big way. So, listen, it's going to be a tough game. They're a team that clearly has designs on making the playoffs. The interesting thing for Utah, though, with regard to the playoff picture, I was going on Stathletes, which is an analytic company that ESPN uses with frequency. And right after Minnesota and Dallas, which is at a 100% certainty of happening because they, are going to clearly play each other in the first round, at 76% probability was a Utah-Vegas first-round series, which would be geographically intriguing.
Yes.
But also really intriguing given the changes, the major change that the Golden Knights made with their coaching situation, recently with John Tortorella coming in. So I don't know. I'm just excited. I mean, the West has been such a crapshoot as far as who's actually going to make this wild card and where these teams in the Pacific will end up finishing. That it's just fun to kind of fantasy cast who the first round playoff matchups could be.
Hey, for those of us that are still trying to learn about the landscape of the league and the intricacies of other organizations, if somebody looks at somebody wrong in that Vegas organization, do they get fired? I mean, it seems like they don't mess around down there.
They don't, and it's funny. I think a lot of us in the media have referred to them as ruthless, and the organization likes to push back on that characterization. But I mean, they're ruthless. They have absolutely no compunction to just make major changes. And it doesn't matter if you're a coach that won a Stanley Cup championship. It doesn't matter if you're going back a few years, Marc-Andre Fleury, the face of the franchise when they were an expansion team. they're going to make changes and make drastic changes in service of trying to win a Stanley Cup, which is the mission that their owner Bill Foley has put them on. So, I mean, they've earned that reputation. I remember writing a big long essay about how they were one of the NHL's greatest villains when they won the Stanley Cup, and frankly, that mindset got them the cup, and that mindset may actually have saved their season, because in the games they played since Tortorella took over for Bruce Cassidy, they've been great. They're undefeated under Tortorella. They're playing incredibly good defense for him, and he may have been the right guy to give them a kick in the pants and make them a very difficult playoff opponent.
So you look at, and Bill Armstrong comes on with this every week, and he talks, at least early in the season, he talked about goal differential. Is that something you got to keep an eye on? The Mammoth have 88 points and are plus 31 in goal differential. You look at Nashville, they're at 84 points and minus 18 in goal differential. You got Anaheim at minus 19 with 87 points. Is there a way to explain that for those of us that are trying to still figure this thing out?
I mean, good goaltending is one part of it.
Yeah.
I think clearly the Mammoth have gotten that for most of the season. In the Ducks' case, they're in kind of a perilous situation right now. They're not guaranteed to make the playoffs. They're in a bit of a losing skid right now. They've got not only Los Angeles but San Jose nipping at their heels as potentially moving into one of those top three spots in the Pacific Division. And I think part of that is that they're such a young team. I've long thought they just don't know how to defend yet on a playoff level. And that could ultimately be their undoing, because I think their goaltending and Lucas Dostal really saved their bacon for most of the season. So, again, it's one of the things about Utah. I know I've extolled the virtues of their offense and their goal scoring and guys like Logan Cooley, but I think fundamentally they've built themselves a nice little team that can defend as well. We didn't really see it all that much last night. But when push comes to shove, I trust them a little bit more than I trust a team like Anaheim to get it done in the playoffs. Greg
Wyshynski, ESPN, joining us right here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Was Connor McDavid, was he targeted pretty quick? Did people know, when he's growing up and he's, a teenager and tearing up things, that they knew he was going to be what he's eventually turned into?
It's funny you should say that, because I do a podcast with a guy named Jeff Merrick in Canada, and we've done it for, now upwards of probably like 15 years together. And I remember talking to him one day on the podcast, and he's like, there's this kid, Connor McDavid, and he's going to be fantastic. And at the time, I think McDavid was maybe like 14, right? So it's like, even back then, people knew. And when he was drafted or was entering the draft, that was one of the moments in the NHL where teams were literally emptying out their rosters in the hopes of getting the first overall pick. I mean, Buffalo was a great example of that. Obviously, Edmonton ends up winning the lottery. He was the guy that you threw away your season to try to get, and the tanking was justified. I mean, I think that when you think about the most skilled players in the last 30 years, 40 years in the NHL, McDavid is right near the top insofar as what he's able to do. The knock on him is he can't win the big one. The knock on him is he doesn't have a Stanley Cup ring yet. But I think a lot of that is more about the team around him than anything that Connor did or didn't do in the playoffs.
What's the bust ratio on those can't miss guys? Is there been a few Ryan Leafs out there?
There have been. I'll say this. The first overall guys, outside of a few exceptions, usually hit. Now they may not hit on the level of first overall pick all the time, but most of them turn out to be pretty good NHL players. It's the rest of the top 10 that's a little bit tricky. Like, it's funny. My colleague Rachel Dory and I are doing a redraft of the 2016 NHL draft that's going to run on ESPN tomorrow. And when you look back at that draft, Austin Matthews, first overall, pretty smart to take him first. He's great. He's going to be maybe even a Hall of Famer one day. But then, you get past that, and all of a sudden you're looking at guys like Jesse Puljujärvi and Olli Jovalevio and guys that aren't even in the league anymore that were taken in like the top 5. And so it does become a bit more specious once you get past first overall. But usually the first overall guy is the guy that at least gets to star status, if not franchise player status.
All right, so he the last time Utah lost, they lost to Alex Ovechkin, who put on a show. Look in the crystal ball. Is he playing again next year?
I'm going to say no. I say that without any solid inside information about it. But, like, what's left to accomplish? Like, somebody asked Alex today about the record that Gretzky holds for combined regular season and playoff goals. And you could just see it in Ovechkin's face that he doesn't care. Like, he's got the goals record, right? Like, that's the one he cared about. That's the one he wanted to break. I do think he does have enthusiasm left for this game. And I think that, he enjoys playing with the Capitals. And if they're a team that can contend, he might think about coming back. But, ultimately, like he said today, if this was a situation where he was 25 or 35, he'd come back lickety split. But when you're 40, you got to think about your body. You got to think about your family. You got to think about all the things that come with getting older. And, he's going to make the decision in the offseason. I reported that back in January, and I think he confirmed it today. And I'm leaning towards his career coming to an end. But, I've been wrong before when I thought that guys could call it quits. It's hard to give this life up, especially when you're Alex Ovechkin.
If you're a Colorado Avalanche fan, is there anything in particular that you can point to and say that makes us nervous going into the playoffs? Because right now they just look like they're steamrolling everybody.
Yeah, it's called the rest of your division. this dopey playoff format that we have, where if you have a top, you could argue that Colorado, Dallas, and Minnesota are amongst the top 4 teams in the league and be pretty confident about that. Maybe even they're the top 3 teams in the league. And the bottom line for Colorado is that, after what could be a pretty pesky first-round series against whoever comes in hot in that last wild card spot, now you got to play either Minnesota or Dallas. And both of those teams have the capability of beating the Avalanche in the playoffs. Especially Dallas. I'm pretty high on Dallas. I think that that's a team, obviously, that's made the conference final in multiple seasons. They've got the goaltending. They've got the veterans. They've got a lot of scoring. They're the kind of team that could really give Colorado a push. So, if you're an Avs fan, you hate this. You want an easier path to have that earned for your regular season success. But the bottom line is that, once they get past the first round, assuming they do, they're going to run up right against one of the top 3 teams in the league.
Is there any kind of appetite to try to change up this format?
There isn't, and there isn't because the commissioner Gary Bettman has shut it down at every turn. They like the fact that Dallas and Minnesota are playing in the first round. I think they want there to be a maximum amount of attention on the playoffs in the opening round. Part of the reason they went with this wild card format was to create more opportunities for regional rivals to play each other, and we could get a situation where, for example, the Flyers and Penguins play in the first round based on the current seeding. So that's kind of what they want out of this. That's what they get in most years out of this. It's not fair. I think it diminishes the regular season. But the 2 things that Gary Bettman has always been steadfast on are, 1, that he doesn't mind this playoff format, and 2, that he has absolutely no appetite for expanding the playoff field. Which is why you don't see teams at these board of governors meetings trying to force the issue, even though every other major sport has expanded their postseason field, while the NHL has remained at 16 teams, for forever, for a really long time.
So next time you're in Salt Lake City, we'll do our best to get you behind the wheel of the Mammoth. All right.
I mean, I don't know if I need to drive it. I would be happy sitting in the back, drinking out of that big horn.
Yes.
Or that big tusk, rather. I called it a horn because it almost looks like a Viking horn. But yeah, the big tusk beer. Give me a big tusk beer and stick me in the back of the Zamboni. I'll be happy to just chill and spin around the ice during an intermission, and I'll be a happy boy. But it's funny. It's it just goes to show a little bit of ingenuity goes a long way. Not only the fact that it's a recommissioned 2002 Olympic Zamboni, which is a great backstory, but I've been on social media today and I'm just seeing all these teams and all these people using AI to create their own version of the Mammoth for the Flyers or the Blackhawks or whatever, and it's just it just goes to show you that Utah was first out of the gate with this idea, and it really sparked a lot of people's imagination.
Well, Greg, we got to do this again, man. This was fun. We appreciate it. And again, next time you're in Salt Lake City, let us know, and we'll find a way to make it happen for sure.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me. You
got it. Greg Wyshynski, senior NHL writer for ESPN, right here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. By the way, good. Lloyd piped in my ear. It was hey, how many guys these guys bust? And that's a fascinating point. Apparently, if you're number 1 overall, there's not
the
a
thing
lot
is,
of
you
us.
think about it, NFL, NBA, they're number one misses
all the time.
All the time. Like,
Yeah.
it's not set in stone, but NHL, it just seems like there's more of a higher hit percentage.
Yeah. Interesting stuff. Greg Wyshynski, again, you can read his stuff at ESPN.com. 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Believe it or not, this guy actually has friends. Nice. This is Scotty G and Friends on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. We talked to, look, earlier in the show, we broke down a little Utah spring ball. Steve Bartle was joining us from KSLSports.com. Let's get the Cougar angle on this as well. Mitch Harper from KSLSports.com, kind enough to hang out with us. Mitch, how are you?
Busy day, Scotty. The portal never sleeps. When people tell me, oh, now that the seasons are over, you got a lot of time on your hands. Sometimes
no.
it's busy season.
All right, so Rob Wright hops in the portal. That doesn't necessarily mean a guy's leaving. It just means that he's going to, test and see what else is out there and see what kind of dollar bills are out there. He will be in demand. What are the chances he's back in a Cougar uniform next year?
I think there's a chance. And, it's such unfortunate that it gets to this point because, like his situation at Baylor last year, the deck's pretty much cleared for him to be the guy, the number one player. But, Rob Wright, you kind of know what you're getting when you added Rob Wright last year. And Scott Drew was pretty transparent and adamant that Rob Wright signed a contract and he still ended up at BYU. So this was always a possibility. And BYU has done its due diligence with exploring other avenues. But sure, I mean, if you can get Rob Wright back, you definitely, I think, look at that. Now, it hasn't always been successful, whether it was basketball or football. You think back to Cody Epps in football, that didn't work out. It really changed the trajectory of him. But Rob Wright's the best point guard in this portal class. I really believe that. I mean, he's an excellent player. And I know that Cougar fans out there have mixed feelings about Rob Wright, but he, as a ball handler on the offensive end, he's outstanding. Defensively, sure, there's a lot of issues there with Rob Wright that he's got to improve. And I think he did in stretches in the postseason. I think just what's unfortunate, Scotty, is that he tells some outlets, like BYU TV and the Deseret News, that if he's playing college basketball, he will be at BYU. I think what he gave me in Portland was probably the more real answer, where he just didn't know, is what he said. He didn't have a clear idea yet of what his future was going to be. And that's just the nature of what college sports have become, where you almost have to assume everyone is gone until they make it clear as day that they're running it back for another season or re-signing for yet another year. And Rob Wright, he hits the portal, and I'm sure his agents have done tons of back channeling to really know what the market is like. He's not diving in without seeing potentially a robust market without back channeling, but BYU, I think, definitely should not give up on that opportunity to bring back Rob Wright into the fold because he's an excellent player.
Well, and I would certainly, if you're a Cougar fan and you're, angry or upset, I would say this, like, first off, I know these guys are being very well compensated, but it's still a kid. And when you get done with the season, and I've seen this, up close and in person, guys are emotional. They're looking at a situation where these are their brothers. They've just gone to battle. It's been a difficult loss, and everybody's like, let's run it back. Let's go. And then everybody kind of calms down, and then you start seeing some numbers, and you can change your opinion pretty quickly. So I wouldn't hold that against him that much. I know a lot of BYU fans are salty, but at the end of the day, it is a business, and if that's your son, you're going to want him to set himself up as much as he possibly can going into life, and that's a good way to do it.
That's true, and Rob Wright, he's got a lot of siblings too. I think he's the oldest of 8 siblings, so he can really create a lot of wealth for his family potentially with that, and he obviously probably did with BYU as well. It's just kind of strange to see how, he's at BYU's annual awards and then he's hitting the pool. I will say too, though, that this locker room for BYU, I think, was in a pretty good place. This isn't a situation where that they're frustrated with Kevin Young. Now, Kevin Young's a very direct coach. He's point blank, matter of fact, like an NBA coach would be. And I think these players respond to that. But it's almost like the nature of basketball guys are kind of wired this way where everything is a 1-year deal. Even AJ DeBonsa was, 3 different high schools in 3 years. Rob Wright has been with a lot of different programs. Baylor, BYU was with a couple different high schools as well. This is just kind of the nature of high-level 5-star basketball players, it seems. If they're not one and done in the NBA, they're going to be looking at their options maybe elsewhere in the sport. But, I think that Rob Wright and BYU, I think he's really enjoyed his time at BYU. And I don't think this is a case of he just wanted to get out of Dodge as quickly as possible, because Kevin Young really wanted to build around Rob Wright. He said as much exiting Portland at the NCAA tournament, that he was a guy that they could build around. And I think the challenge, though, for whatever team ends up getting Rob Wright, can he be the leader, a heart and soul of a team? I think that was where he fell flat with this BYU team this past year when challenged by Kevin Young after Richie Saunders goes down. AJ did a solid job. Even he admitted that it was a challenge for him. But for Rob Wright, I think that's still, a difficult proposition for him. And when you bring up the kids piece, he still feels kind of like a kid in many respects, whereas AJ kind of carried himself like a grown man in many aspects, from his media approach and the way he went about his business on and off the court. Rob Wright still feels like that kid that many people refer to these guys as now, even though they're getting tons of money thrown their way and have great opportunities. He still feels like that. So that's a challenge too. And if he was to be back at BYU or wherever he ends up going, that's going to be something I think will be very interesting to see if he can be a leader of a team, because at BYU, I think that kind of came up a little bit short this past year.
So if he does indeed leave, and so you're minus your big 3 from last year, you obviously add the Branch kid, who's expected to be another great player, but how does the team building go forward for BYU with losing your 3 key players, assuming that AJ's not coming back, which I know there's some rumors out there, but he's gone. He's going to the NBA. Come on now.
No question. He better move on. I mean, come on. You got to be the number 1 pick. It makes all the sense in the world for him to move on. It'd be shocking if he returned. So, I mean, BYU's got to get starter caliber players. And I think that's the issue. If you lose a Rob Wright, is you probably only have Bruce Branch and Kennard Davis as guys that you would feel confident could be starters. From the guard line, you'd have KJ Perry, who joined the program at the mid-year point. He's a combo guard, really explosive player. He could be pretty good. I mean, he's kind of a very raw Ja Morant, like when Ja Morant was at Murray State. Very explosive player is KJ Perry, number 2 junior college prospect in the 2026 cycle. Again, he joined in January, so he's been around the program the last handful of years. And they also get Nate Pickens back, a UC Riverside transfer who suffered a season-ending injury in training camp last October. He told me that he wants to be back at BYU. His expected return is from his injury in May to be cleared for full go. But again, I don't know if you just hand the keys over to those guys. Even with Rob Wright and AJ DeBonsa and Richie Saunders, that was still only good for 10th place in the Big 12. You got to level it up on that starting 5, and you got to get more size too. And, BYU's been linked to an international player who's 23 years old, just turned 23 from the United Kingdom. He plays currently in Italy professionally in the EuroLeague, in Quinn Ellis. He's been linked to Louisville, Kentucky, Duke, BYU as well. He would make a lot of sense. He's kind of in a Yegor Gilman type of mold, a little bit shorter, but a really good passer and facilitator like Yegor was. And Rob Wright was pretty good too. He just maybe took up a little more real estate in the paint than Yegor did during his one season at BYU. And BYU's been linked to some other portal names like a Colby Garland from San Jose State. You probably saw him in the Mountain West. Yeah. He's kind of more like a Rob Wright, where very ball dominant, 20-plus points per game. JJ Mandequit, former Utah prep player, just completed this past season with Danny Sprinkle and the Washington Huskies. He's in the portal. BYU was heavily involved in his recruitment. They hosted him on a visit with AJ DeBonsa 2 years ago. So there's always players, but again, in the Big 12, where if you're trying to Chase being potentially a top 16 seed. I mean, that's the challenge in front of BYU. They know they have pieces and personnel to get into the tournament and get in the bracket. But I think we're learning as these last couple of years, it's becoming more chalky than ever. You got to get a top 16 seed to really make a deep run. And the personnel that you have currently, that's just not going to be enough. So they got to retool the front court and that guard line if you don't bring back Rob Wright.
Where did things get sideways with Xavier Stanton? Was it just too much too soon for him?
He was a really raw player coming in. I remember talking with Keith Smart, the former Utah Prep head coach who coached Dayton and AJ DeBonsa at Utah Prep. And they loved his shot blocking ability. He was viewed as one of the best shot blockers in the 2025 high school recruiting class, but offensively and defensively, very raw. Some questions too about maybe the level of competition in the region he was playing at in Las Vegas. And that was maybe a byproduct of moving on to Utah Prep for his senior year. He also dealt with knee rehab this past year that caused him to only play 9 games. And he told me that was a knee injury that was probably dating back to his high school career. But, he was at the time before AJ committed the highest rated recruit BYU ever landed. And so you would have thought that 7-footer, you want to spend some time with him, but might have been also just a misevaluation where this learning curve was too steeper than maybe expected. Even though they knew he was raw in many aspects, maybe it was still too steep because even before the knee rehab really kicked into high gear at the end of non-conference play, he wasn't seeing much time. And so it would make a lot of sense, with him in the portal. He was linked to USC, UNLV when he was coming out of high school, maybe run it back, go to UNLV in the Mountain West and, be a dominant guy because again, if you players with the size that he has, if he has a dominant year or two, can always change paths again with the portal and maybe get a bigger payday down the road. So I think it might've been a little bit of maybe too big of a steep learning curve right away, but he's got ability. I just think that the health and combination of maybe the needs of this BYU team, as far as going forward and what they want to be a, top 16 caliber team next year, maybe just didn't align and he moves on into the portal.
Certainly when you're able to get a guy like AJ DeBonsa, that's going to inflate your overall payroll, if you will. Does BYU bring that back down, or is that the level that's set? And whether it's AJ or somebody else, or just spread out a little bit more evenly across the team, that's the number that BYU is going to go with going forward.
Yeah, BYU is going to be well-resourced, and they can get into the mix for players. As far as the number, I do expect that to be a little bit down this year. Because one, the view that they have maybe of this freshman class, yes, they got Bruce Branch the third, and I don't look at him, and I don't think this BYU team maybe does as a number one option like AJ was viewed, but still that this freshman class wasn't as impactful as what the 2026 or 2025 cycle was, and AJ was the top cream of the crop and probably the best guy this past year. But BYU is going to still be resourced. I mean, this is a different year when it comes to rev share. And we know BYU wants to make it clear they live by the rules, crossing T's, dotting I's. There's always workarounds, though, to find ways with NIL deals to make sure you got a very well-resourced roster. And BYU is going to be in the mix. I still think that the boosters, the donors for Kevin Young, they still support Kevin Young and his vision with this BYU basketball program. But, the element of having rev share in place for this portal cycle makes it a little bit different. So you might not have as big of a payroll last season when you had AJ, Rob Wright, and it felt like before rev share went into effect, it was kind of a free-for-all with front-end deals for these players. Now it kind of lowers and maybe limits and makes you have more of a money ball approach to building out this roster for year 3 under Kevin Young.
Mitch, you're the best, man. Appreciate it. We didn't even have a chance to talk spring football. I'm sure we'll have plenty of opportunities to talk about that. But never a dull moment in your world. There's no off season anymore when it comes to college athletics. But again, thanks for all you do.
No problem, Scotty. Take care.
There he is, Mitch Harper, Cougar Insider, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
I'm here on the job site with Dale, who's a framing contractor.
Hey, good morning.
Dale traded up to Geico Commercial Auto Insurance for all his business vehicles. We're here where he needs us most.
Yep, they sure are.
We make it easy for him to save on all his insurance needs, all in one place, with coverage that fits his business and bottom line. Oh, I shouldn't have looked down.
It's all right.
We're so far up here.
Look at me. Take a deep breath.
No, I'm good. So good.
Get a commercial auto insurance quote today at geico.com and see how much you could save. It feels good to Geico.
Down to Scotty G and Friends on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Wrapping up another edition of the show, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. A lot of good friends today. Big thanks to Steve Bartle, Mitch Harper, also Greg Wyshynski, and who else did we have a chance to chat
Bob
with?
Casper.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Live from the Masters.
Live from the Masters, no big deal.
His 35th time going to the Masters.
Yeah, he knew exactly how many times he'd been there. It's like, oh, 34,
I would like to just go
35.
one time.
Just one time. That's it. Just one time. That's all we want. No big deal.
It's not asking a lot.
I don't think so. I don't think so at all. Back with you tomorrow. Hey, our good friend Sly Sylvester will be the friend of the day tomorrow. He'll hang out with us for 2 hours from 1 to 3 right here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. JJ and Alex straight ahead right here on The Zone.